Quick question on our leadership role. Been said by many that the U.S. pulls back funding and leadership. Adversarial regimes like the PRC will increase their funding involvement in leadership as well.
What you're watching here is a critical moment in U.S. policymaking, as lawmakers gather for a House Appropriations Committee hearing focused on accountability and reform at the United Nations. This discussion highlights growing concerns in Washington about how the UN operates, how funds are used, and whether the organization is truly meeting its global responsibilities. At the center of this hearing is a broader debate. Should the United States continue funding international institutions at current levels, or should there be stricter oversight and reforms tied to that support? Lawmakers on this panel are clearly emphasizing transparency, efficiency, and measurable results, issues that have long surrounded the United Nations.
Mr. Ciscomani, you recognize, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. And thank you. You know, I want to actually piggyback off what you just said, Ambassador, when trade over aid. I think the chairman mentioned at the beginning of the hearing, he said leverage, not tribute. I think these all come to the same conclusion or the same approach, which is the role that we need to play, where the funds are going, the accountability behind them as well, so that really American principles and values can rule the day in some of these situations where that's what's necessary to get out of the tough places that they're in. So I want to give you a chance to expand a little bit on that, on the trade over aid. My background is on that when I was working for the state of Arizona. So I believe in the power of that and empowering individuals to go out and have their own say over their future, and nothing can do that more than the combination of having a free government combined also with economic opportunity in that nation, and that's what empowers an individual, I strongly believe. So can you piggyback off that? And then I have one more question after that, so hopefully we have time to get there.
Yeah, I'll try to be brief. I won't name the organization or the country, but case in point, you know, I just said we're in the financial capital of the world. And I just sat with one of the major financial institutions, one of the brand names that everyone here would know, and they described to us a conversation they were having with a country that they very much want to invest in, a lot of opportunity for their capital to flow in. They were having a conversation with the country, and they said, look, we need some judiciary reforms. We need to be able to arbitrate. We need to be able to go back to our investors and say, you know, with confidence, we can get our money out. And as we were having this conversation, I looked at Ambassador Dan Negrea here, who's responsible for a lot of these efforts. And we're going to pull in a UN agency that has the technical expertise and the presence on the ground and the relationships with the current government to do exactly what this major financial institution is looking to do and needs to see in terms of reforms. This small government doesn't know how to do the reforms. These technical agencies that we're paying for a quarter of here can go in and do that. So we're providing a bit of the glue to pull them together, and also with our development agencies. We've met recently, and we're going to have a series of forums with the Development Finance Corporation, with Exim Bank, with the Millennium Challenge Corporation. And I'll just point out, I know there was a lot of concern over USAID. Many of those functions have been pulled into the State Department. It's also happened with the United Kingdom. It's also happened with the Australian government. I just sat with the deputy director of a major agency over in Geneva, a UN agency. They were thanking us because they told us how many times in their career they would get different guidance from aid than they would from state, than they would from the U.S. military on the ground. So us having a more coherent whole and cooperating with the UN, but where the money is that can really move the needle for some of these mid-level and developing countries is in the private sector. And you'll go to these conferences here and they're nowhere to be found. We can pull those together.
Couldn't agree more. I'll squeeze in one quick question on our leadership role. Been said by many that the U.S. pulls back funding and leadership. Adversarial regimes like the PRC will increase their funding involvement in leadership as well. Do you see any evidence of that potentially happening? And would there ever be these kind of leadership positions for countries that don't value human rights the way that we do and that they should?
Well, and some of these organizations where we've tried and it's just not working, we're just not, like the Human Rights Council, we're just not going to, the president made a decision, we're just not going to participate anymore. I think others are much more reformable, and others we have to get in there and fight. In the International Maritime Organization, they were literally a week away from putting in a carbon tax on global shipping, I guess with some fantastical goal of forcing fossil-fueled tankers and ships and container ships to move to EVs. It was really almost hard to believe. It would have amounted to $1 billion a month in fines on our global shipping fleet that would have been passed on to consumers, of course. We got in there and defeated that measure. That was not in line with our interest or, I think, with the best interest of our constituents. So some of these organizations, we just have to get in there and fight and win in line with what I think our constituents want to see.
Thank you, Ambassador. Chairman, I yield back.
As you can see from the speakers, the tone is serious and deliberate. Officials are not just asking questions, they're pushing for answers. They want to know how decisions are made within the UN system, how programs are evaluated, and whether American taxpayer dollars are being spent effectively. One key theme emerging here is accountability. Several members suggest that while the UN plays an important role in global peacekeeping, humanitarian aid, and diplomacy, there are still gaps in oversight. These concerns include bureaucracy, slow response times, and questions about whether reforms promised in the past have actually been implemented. Another important point raised is reform. The idea is not necessarily to abandon the United Nations, but to reshape it. Lawmakers appear to be advocating for a system that is more results-driven, more transparent, and better aligned with the interests of contributing nations like the United States. At the same time, this hearing reflects a larger geopolitical reality. The UN remains a central platform for global cooperation, especially in times of crisis. But as global power dynamics shift, countries like the US are reevaluating how much influence they have within the organization and whether that influence matches the level of funding they provide. What makes this moment particularly significant is the balance being discussed. On one hand, there is recognition that the UN is essential for addressing global challenges. On the other hand, there is clear frustration about inefficiencies and a desire for meaningful change. As the hearing continues, expect more direct questioning, more scrutiny, and possibly proposals for conditions tied to future funding. This isn't just a routine meeting. It's part of an ongoing conversation about the future of international cooperation and America's role in shaping it. In the end, this discussion goes beyond politics. It's about how the world works together, or struggles to, and what accountability